everyone. So let's get started. Let me share my screen. So let me know. Just one of you let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah, it's visible now.
Okay, thank you for that. And welcome to SAC Planning demo session today. So before we get started, to just judge your earlier experience, can we have a quick raise of hands, or yes, if you already know a little bit of SAC. Have you worked on SAC? Not planning, at least any SAC. Okay, I see one, Gopi Chand. Two, three. Okay. So a couple of you already have worked on SAC, which is good. Because yeah, planning is one of the core capabilities in SAC, but other than planning, there are other things as well. The general business intelligence, which is the normal reporting, as well as some predictive capabilities are also there. So planning in SAC is a broad area, and we will cover these topics today. So we will see what is planning all about and what are the capabilities that SAC offers in planning, right? And then there's been some recent changes in the way the modeling is done in SAC. So we'll see that we'll create a new model and we'll discuss about what's the difference between this new model and the old model, etc. Right? And the buzzword of the hour, we all know, yeah, wherever you go, GPT models, OpenAI, ChatGPT, it's everywhere. So in SAC also we can include GPT, and then we can do some interactions with GPT, right? So that will be a good introduction and good demo to the planning in SAC, right? Before we begin, anyone has any specific question or specific ask that you would like to see in this demo session?
Hi Ram, to be honest, no questions now. Maybe we will catch up at the end of the session.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I see one hand up.
Can you share your full screen, Ram? And there is on the top, you can click on slideshow. Can you make it full screen? Yes. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, so Ram, you have any questions? I see your hand up.
Not from me actually. Yeah.
Okay, okay, yeah. So let's start. So basically, in SAP, the SAP landscape has always had some business intelligence capabilities as well as some planning capabilities, right? There has been a lot of changes in the landscape, right? So predominantly due to the cloud prevalence of cloud-based solutions, and that too after the pandemic, like after the COVID, every company or every solution is moving towards the cloud, right? So if we see the SAP landscape as a whole and how it has changed, so SAP initially had business warehouse or BW systems for their reporting, and it also had a bit of planning in it called integrated planning. So you would have heard or seen or know about, BW IP. That is one of the planning solutions SAP had for more than a decade or even close to 2 decades now, right? So after that, they also had dedicated planning systems, BPS and BPC, right, which are still there. So business planning and consolidation. And there are also other planning capabilities which are core to the S4, the suite itself, right? So you have production planning, you have maintenance planning, you have demand planning, supply planning, so many things. So what is this planning that we are talking about, and how does it help, or how does it sit in SAC, right? So the strategy for SAP was to combine all the solutions and to provide a cloud solution which has all the business intelligence capabilities and some planning capability in it. And it should be the go-to solution for any customer, right? And compared to the other on-prem solutions, getting into SAC is kind of easier. The setup is easier, the procurement is easier, and the total cost of ownership and the initial cost to try the solution, everything is lower. So any customers can try it even before they buy it, right? So they can just apply for a demo tenant or trial tenant, and then they can see the capabilities. So coming to SAC, the planning in SAC basically it is like consolidating all the other planning scenarios which are in the downstream system. So if you have other SAP systems, if you have SAP BW, then we'll create a connection in SAC and acquire the data from BW, and then we do some planning in SAC, and then even if you have data in some SAP BPC system, we can connect to that BPC system and then get data from it. And even we can write back our plan data to the source system, etc. Right. So in SAC, when we say planning, what are we talking about? Right. So what are the core capabilities? So we have both, acquired and live models. We'll see in detail when we go into the system in a bit, and we'll see how to create those models, etc. Right. So basically, we have two types of model. One is called acquired or import model, and another is called live model. Right? So this acquired or import model is where we physically store data in SAC, right? And the live model is where we just have a connection to whichever source system, and there is no physical data movement to SAC. There is no storage in SAC. The data still remains in the source system. We just have a connection to the source system, right? So when we say acquired or import model, then that's when we do store data in SAC, and that's when the planning modeling concept in SAC comes in, right? So we can create planning models, which will be the ground for us to plan and write data back to. We will see that how things have changed. There has been a classic modeling approach, and then there is now a new modeling approach, and in very few waves it's again going to be changed, and there is going to be another modeling approach, right? So things keep changing because it's a cloud solution. We will see what's happening and what's going to happen in the modeling space. And when we talk about planning, there are always going to be multiple versions of plan, right? So when a year begins, any company will do some kind of financial planning, either budgeting or their target and goal setting, etc. Right. So for budgeting, for example, if they want to attain a particular financial target this year, the top CEOs and the CXOs will decide, okay, these are the numbers we want to achieve this year, and then that plan gets broken down into multiple levels, maybe by department or maybe by LOBs or maybe by products, etc. And then it again gets broken down, etc. So this type of planning is called top down planning. You arrive at a figure, and then you break it down and you arrive at most detailed figures. This is called top down planning. And then you will not have one version of plan, right? So you always have multiple versions of plan. There will be some versions in working and some versions which are published, etc. Also, there are multiple categories in planning, right? So you have budgeting, you have forecasting, like that. So all this can be done in SAC. It has a robust version management capability. We will see that how we can create public versions which are published to everyone, and private versions which are like work in progress, dirty versions where a planner can control access of who can see that version, etc. And predominantly the planning happens in tables in SAC. Not even predominantly, it's only option for you to plan is through tables. You can see the plan data in charts, but you cannot enter data or you cannot plan using charts. Right? So the only place where we can plan as a planner is through tables. And the tables have the planning tables have some of the features like rolling forecast layout, and you know uh, mass data entry, fluid data entry, creating calculations on the fly, and adding dimension members. Like if you have a product which is new, you are just introducing the product, it's not coming from the source, you have to plan on the fly, then you can just add a dimension member in the table and you can plan for that. If you are adding a new plant, you are adding a new cost center, you are adding a new profit center, it doesn't have to come from the source. You can also do it directly in the table. So the planning table have some planning capabilities. We'll see that. And the main thing that happens in planning are allocations, right? So we allocate values to a particular cell, we redistribute value that are existing in a cell, we spread values, etc. Right? So all that is covered in SAC's allocation capabilities. And any planning system, uh, it has to support some form of automation or some form of a way where a planner can execute repetitive tasks instead of doing ad hoc planning every time, right? So planning basically is repetitive. Every year a company plans, every quarter a company plans. So they don't want a person to go and do that planning, or even if they want a person to go and do the planning, the person should have some augmented help where they can just run a process, trigger a process, just change some variable and run a process and monitor it, etc. That's where data actions come into picture. So if you're coming from a classic SAP background, for example, BWIP integrated planning, you will have things like planning functions, planning sequence, process chains to automate the planning things, right? Similarly, in SAC, like we discussed, the plan numbers can be entered in a table. There can be allocations happening in a table. There can be version management happening in a table. All these were done by some person manually. The same can be done through data actions. So in data actions, we create a sequence of planning steps. We'll say this is the step one, where you copy data from one year to the next year, and then maybe add 10%. And then we can add another step where we readjust the data. We can add another step where we reallocate the data, etc. Right? So it will be a sequence of steps like a flow chart, and we can use the data action as a trigger within a story. So if a planner has to plan, he just has to click a button, and all that we have set up inside the data action will run, and that will change the planning data. Similarly, multi actions can link multiple planning data actions, and it can publish data, etc. So it's like a collection of data actions. And then coming to simulations, so far we have seen they're all, top down planning and planning numbers into the system. And what about the what if scenarios, right? So you want to take a decision like whether we should build a software within a company or buy a software, or whether we should go to market at a particular time or not, or what is the cost of building versus what is the cost of buying. You have multiple what if scenarios. Then that is where value driver trees comes in, right? So we will have our interesting KPI, or we'll have our interesting measure in the picture. Like for example, if our revenue is the interesting KPI, we want to see the revenue impact that a particular political, geopolitical decision or a financial decision or the macroeconomic condition have on our company. Then we can use value driver trees, and then we can simulate various situations where we say if the market grows by certain percentage, what is our impact? If the market shrinks by certain percentage, what is our impact? What if we increase our marketing budget? What if we decrease our marketing budget, right? So that type of what if scenarios and simulations can be done through value driver trees. And all these are, planning which a person does either manually or through data actions, or it's without the help of, or with limited help from the machine. What if SAC can itself predict the numbers based on the history, right? So that's where predictive planning comes in. We have time series forecasting algorithms in SAC which will check the past months or past years of data, and then see the trend cycles and all that that's going on in the data. And then it will predict, okay, so far this is the trend your revenue is following, and if the trend continues, this is the next year's plan numbers or forecasted numbers looks like, right? From the predictive forecast, we can take that as a version of plan. We can have our own version of plan, we can have multiple versions of plan, and then we can compare, okay, so this is how the system is forecasting, this is the plan numbers, and this is what the CEO or the CXO is telling, and what is the gap, is it achievable or not achievable? That kind of analysis can be done. And then so far we have done all those data actions, multi actions, predictive planning, etc. But now we have to put it into a schedule. We have to run it periodically. We have, even if the person is not there, it should kick on a particular time and then it should run. For that, we have calendar integration in SAC. We will run all these processes. We'll keep them scheduled, and they trigger on the particular time or event or process, and we can monitor them, and then we can, okay, the plan is completed, like that, right? So we can keep all the planned uh, scenarios going with calendar integration in SAC. And when we talk about planning, not everyone should be allowed to plan. In any company, not everyone will be a planner. Most of them will be only consumers. Only few will be planners and few will be reviewers, right? So we should have data restrictions in place to avoid people unauthorized to change the planning numbers. That's where data locking comes into picture. And again, SAC has a very robust data locking capability. So we will also see how do you lock a slice of data, and how do you make even the data locking scheduled in calendar, so that even the planners should only be able to plan between a particular duration of the month. Say for example, in a company the rule is only the first 5 days of a month you should be able to change the plan. After that the plan, it's locked, right? So these type of things we can do with data lock management. So these are the core planning capabilities, right? So within each of the capability there are again a lot of variations, a lot of advanced topics. So for example, in data actions you have something called as advanced formula, where you can write scripts to do complex things, and then you have a debugger to debug the performance of data actions, etc. So on a high level, these are the planning core capabilities. So if you don't see your any particular topic of interest here, it will be covered. But these are the high level core capabilities, and they each of them have even more detailed capabilities within them, which we'll cover in the training. Okay. So any questions so far? So the slides are over. We'll jump into the system now. So before that, do you have any specific questions? Yeah, Gopi, go ahead.
While doing the planning, is it allowable only on info?
Sorry, Gopi, I couldn't hear you clearly. While doing the planning? Can you repeat that?
You're speaking on a mute if you're speaking, Gopi. Let's proceed further, Ram. Maybe we'll take that later.
Okay. Okay, so now let's get into the tenant. Okay, so this is how a SCC tenant looks like, and this is the main navigation bar, right? From where we can go to different places and do different things. So in planning, we'll generally planning starts with modeling, right? So we'll go to this modeler, and then we'll talk about modeling, and then we'll go back to stories and build a planning scenario, right? And all these things, data actions, allocations, predictive, multi-actions, all these are also related to planning, even calendar, all these are also related to planning, which we'll cover in the main training session. So let's get started with modeling. Initially, when SAC was released, there was only one type of model, right? So when you click create a new model, it will just create a model. But now when you click create new model, it asks you for an option, right? So there are two types of models now. So one is called the classic account model, and the other is called the new model, or the measure model. And the SAP's recommendation you see here is to go with the new model, but also there are some limitations. So when you go to learn more, you will know what are the limitations in the new model. So, but at this point, the limitations are very few. And if you want to create any model, you should probably be doing new model 90% or even 99% of the time. Only if you have some existing scenarios which are already there, which are built in the SAC system that your client or your customer is using, it's already on classic, then you will be using classic, or else you'll mostly go for new. So what's the difference between classic and new? We'll see that, right? So before that, I'd like to show you some pre-existing models or some content that is delivered by SAP, right? So one of the good things about SAP is that they not only sell the solutions, but they also sell the business content, or they also give the business content as a package, right? So there are two types of business content basically. One is coming from third parties, who are SAP partners like many companies, Capgemini, Infosys, Accenture, etc. They build content, and those content may be free for you to use, or they might have some they will require you to buy a key and use it, etc. Right? So if you see this locked content, probably I should go to their website, buy a key, and then I should use it. If it is open content, then it doesn't mean that you can use it for free. It might be here for you to demo their solution and then get in touch with them and then contact it. On the other hand, this business content which is given to you by SAP is free for you to use in any manner you deem. You can just use them as a starting point, you can just build on them, you can use them as your training material, you can use them as a POC material, anything. Right, so if you see here, there are a lot of scenarios, industry specific scenarios. See, for example, if your customer is an oil and gas company, then you might be interested in this package. And there can be, LOB scenarios, line of business, for travel and expense, for vendor management, etc. And so we are talking about planning. So let's check what scenarios there for planning. So you see here, there are a lot of planning scenarios also here, right? So there is even SAP S4HANA planning, financial planning for S4HANA, rapid financial planning, rapid workforce planning, rapid sales planning. All these are pre-delivered content for us. We can just activate them and then we can start using them, right? So when you are going for a customer workshop or a customer demo where you have only a limited time and then you have to show them some solution and impress them, then this things come in handy, right? So if you are going for an oil and gas company and SAP already gives you oil and gas package, just install it, see around what is in there, and then you can demo it to the customers and then impress them. So for example, if I like one of these solutions, maybe commercial planning, I can click that package and then I can see what is inside that. Okay, so it's failing. So maybe this is already successfully imported. So let's check that package. I think maybe there is some maintenance window or something. So this content network is not behaving as expected. But yeah, anyways, I was just going to demo you that you can activate the business content and third party business content, but we are not going to do activation now because it will waste time. Right, so we'll already go with some of the existing planning models. Right, so we have some sample models, and the sample models are basically there for learning, training, demo. They are not like content which you can use as a ground to build upon them, right? So these are just for you to understand the SAP solutions out there. And there is a package for planning also, which is this one, sample content for planning. So for example, if I want this package, I should import it. So probably if the content network is not working, yeah, it's working now. Right, so this gives an overview of what is inside a package. And if we go to import options, then we can see exactly what are going to be imported. So there are two folders, there is a story, there is a model, there are a couple of dimensions and a currency. All this 11 objects will be imported, right? Generally, if I don't change any settings and import it, it will be imported in under a public folder. If I want to override that and go to a particular folder, I can do that, but I'll just import it with the default settings. right? That kicks an import job, and we should be able to see the import progressing here. And once the import is done, we can go and we can see the models and stories, right? While that is going on, let's do one thing. Okay, so like how planning has changed, even the story building has also changed. Like we have classic model and a new model. We also have a classic story and the optimized story, right? Again, the SAP recommendation is to use the optimized one. And again, there are limitations in the optimized story. Only when you have to, create a story with that feature, that's the only time you will go for classic. For example, if there is a limitation, you cannot use a particular type of widget or you cannot use a particular capability, then that's when you have to fall back to classic. But again, 80% or 85% of the time you should go for this ODE or the new story, right? So with the new story, what SAP was trying to do is, previously there were two things. One was called story and the other was called the analytic application. So stories are nothing but you can drag and drop widgets and configure them. But there is no scripting capability where you can write code to do some advanced stuff. Right. So with if you need to write code and do some advanced stuff, then you have to go to analytic application, and where you can write your own script and make the charts and widgets do a lot more. Right? Now with story 2 or the new story, SAP is trying to bridge that gap. Right? So you not only can use the story capability, but also use the analytic application capability within the story itself. Right? And one of the interesting capability in analytic application was the custom widgets. So what are these custom widgets? So for example, if I go to a story, so I can insert a simple bar chart. Right? So maybe we right. So we have a bar chart here, which is a widget. I can include a table, that is another widget. So like this bar chart, there are so many different charts here. So you see here about 20 odd charts are there. So all of them are called widgets. Like this, if I'm not satisfied with the existing widgets, I want something more, I want something third party, or I want something of my own, then that's when you have the option to have custom widgets, right? So you can, these are all the standard widgets like the chart, the table, the input controls, all these other geomap, all these are your standard widgets. But if I'm not satisfied with any of them, then I can include my own widget. So for example, now we want to use the GPT models, right? So far SAP or SAC has not provided a standard widget where we can use the GPT capabilities. Right? So that's when custom widgets comes into picture. Right? So we for anything there is a missing functionality and you see the functionality on the web, then any web widget that you can create using JavaScript or you can use access using some third party, then they can be included as custom widgets and they can be used in the new story, right? So let's see if, yeah, so our content is imported. So let's check the content. So everything is a success. These are warnings because they already exist, right? So let's go to this folder and check. So there are two planning models here. So one is financial planning model, another is sales planning model. So basically, all the content so far, in my experience, I have seen all the content that SAP provides are still classic models. They have not started using new models. So let's check that if that has changed. So when I click this model, it will open the modeler and it will show details about that particular model. Right, so there are multiple views here which are called workspaces. So we are in the model structure view, then we have calculations view, and then data management view. Right, so in the model structure view, generally we can see all the measures and all the dimensions. Right, so if you see here, how you can tell whether it is a old model or a new model, it's based on this naming. So if it says planning account, the account based models are the classic models. Right, and if it says planning measure, then it means it's a newer model. That's one way of telling it. The other way is in classic models you'll have this button which says migrate to new model type. So in new model you will not see the button. Right, so SAP has provided a widget or a way for you where you can migrate the old models to new also, and the conditions being there are no the features that are limited in the new models are not used in the classic. So if I click this, it will just say is not available when currency conversion is enabled, meaning uh, this is one of the limitations where you cannot switch this to the new model type. Right, so unless there are no limitations, you can use this button to migrate a classic model to a new model. Right, so now if I want to preview the data inside the model, I can use this and then I can see the data within the model. Right, so what was the difference between the classic model and the new model? Why did they go for the new model? Is because so if you see here in the central, so this is nothing but a star schema. If you have worked in data warehousing or in any reporting tool, you will know that for reporting we prefer star schema, where you have a central fact table surrounded by dimension tables. But if you observe carefully, in the star schema itself, in the central fact table itself, there is no measures. The measures are sitting within a special dimension which is called a account dimension. Right, so here is account dimension which has GL accounts, and inside that we have all the GL account related measures and all the GL account itself sitting there. Right, so this is okay if you have GL accounts like this, but what if I have simple measures like just quantity, quantity, and then amount, and amount in local currency, amount in document currency, etc. Right, they are not actually accounts, but in the classic approach you only have account where you can put measures. So you have to create an account dimension and then put all this non-account measures also as accounts inside the account dimension, which is not great. And the customers requested, and SAP also gave that feature like, okay, so let's not restrict customers to put any type of measure inside account itself. Let's create a segregation. So in the new model, what you can do is you can create measures which are independent of accounts. You can create measures directly on the central foundation tables. Right, so let's check out a new model now. So when I create new model, so you see here there is a data foundation, and the difference is, see here like I said, it says planning measure, not planning account, and here also the button to migrate is missing. Right, and you have an option here which says measure, and I can directly add a measure. Right, so if I want to add a measure like quantity, which is not account, it's not like a personal expenses, tax, like it's not a financial account, it's just a measure. Right, so I can create quantity, and then if I want to create something else like amount, right, I can create it, and you see that all that I'm creating is directly getting added to the data foundation. It's not linking to an external dimension or anything, it's directly getting created in the data foundation itself. Now if I want to have a account dimension for my GL accounting or some type of accounting, I can still create a account dimension also, which is optional. So here you see generic, I can also create an account dimension. I can say FI accounts or something like that, and then it is optional. Now within the account dimension I can go ahead and create my account related measures and account related accounts basically. So now there is no technical restriction like in the classic, where even if you have to create simple measures, you have to only create them through a account dimension. No, that restriction is not there. So now you can create an account which doesn't even have, you can create a model which doesn't even have account dimension. So it's a pure measure model, right? So if you want, you can voluntarily choose whether you want a account dimension in your scenario or not. So that's the benefit, or that's why SAP moved to the new modeling concept. And now they are even moving ahead and they are going one more step uh, forward, where they are creating another model type. So you can check all this information in SAP's product roadmaps, right? So where you will see what are the upcoming uh, features in the product. So I'll give a link in the chat if you want to check, right? So it will say, okay, in every quarter, what is the feature that is upcoming. So in that I checked, and they are coming up again with a new model. So where they are merging the modeling, capabilities and the capabilities of data set. So nowadays we have two things. So we have something called as data set and then something called as model. Each have their own limitations and each have their own benefits. But the direction in which SAP is going seems that they are creating a newer model, and which will be out in another couple of updates, and that will even have, the model will even have capabilities of the data set, right? So when that comes, we can even create, that new model in SAC. Okay, so now let's go to a story. And let's see a very simple planning scenario, and then let's move on to the GPT integration, which is way more interesting, right? So I have created a table based on a planning model. Okay, we have some errors. Okay, it's basically some currencies are missing in the SAP all currency table. Let's see if we can quickly fix those. So when you have a currency conversion error like that, when you are opening a story and when you go to that currency table, there are two tabs. So one is the currency rates and the other is where you can see the actual errors that happen. So if I go to conversion errors, uh, it gives me a list of errors and it also gives me a date. So I don't see anything recent that is happening here, but I see some old errors which has happened a couple of months back, right? So let's go back and try again. Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
just
Yes,
we
yes.
heard.
Okay. Uh, okay, so this is a normal model or BI model without any planning involved. So you see here, I have included a table widget and all these numbers are grayed out, right? So I cannot edit the numbers, they are just read only. And also if I go here and I see some of the planning related features like value lock management and set and set, all these are basically grayed out even. So now if I include a planning model, And like I said, the only way you can enter plan data is through tables, right? So let me include a planning model now and show you the difference. Okay, that. So now you see here, these numbers or these measures, they are in black, they are not grayed out. And if you double click on them, you can edit them, right? So that's basically how you plan. So for example, this is actual version. So if I want to create a plan, I can go and I can just copy this version, and then I can say plan B or some name I can give, and then I can say copy all data and the type of plan I'm creating. Maybe I'm forecasting for the next year. So I'll say forecast, right? And that will create a copy of this data into a plan version, and I can change the plan. So for example, next year we are planning to sell more mountain bikes. I can say, we are planning to sell 10% more mountain bikes, right? So when I say plus 10%, it will just increase from, see here, this was the last year actual. So based on that, we are planning 10% more sales for this year. So that changed my mountain bikes plan, and it is also affecting my totals. And if I drill down into the mountain bike, I can also see that it would have affected, when I say 10% at this range, at this hierarchy, when I say 10% we are planning to do for the mountain bikes, it got evenly distributed 10% to each of the bike types, right? So planning is where we will do, okay, we will say, okay, these are popular models, this usually sell more, so maybe we'll target 20% for them. These are some old models which usually don't sell that well. So all that adjustments we will do in the planning. That's where we use allocation, like distribution, redistribution, data action, etc., to change these numbers. That's all the planning is all about, right? So entering some numbers, entering some plan, and then reviewing that plan again, changing the numbers again, reviewing it, etc., right? So now I have a plan, I have 10% more for mountain bikes, and I can just say, okay, that plan looks good for me, I want to publish the plan. I can say final R plan 2024, and I can publish it. So till I published, it was only private to me, and I can specifically share it with someone if I wanted. But once I publish it, it becomes public. So anyone who has access to this model can now see this plan 2024 and the data in the plan. So that is basically the planning in SAC in a crux, right? So you first create a model which is planning enabled, and then there are two types of models, the classic and the new. And the SAP's recommendation is go for the new, and you can come to a story, and the planning happens within the table widget. Right? So far so good. So now we have the last 10 minutes. So let's try and create a custom widget which will allow us to do the GPT integration. Right. So before we do that, any questions so far?
So Ram, where the plan and the actual data will get stored.
Yeah, can you be a bit louder?
Yeah, where the actual and plan data will get stored. Will it get stored in the model itself, or?
Yeah, it will get stored in the model. So for example, now I entered some plan in a table and published it. Now if I go to that model, that sales planning model, and if I go to this data preview, so you see here one version of data actual which was already there, but now I created a plan 2024. So if I go to plan 2024, I can see the exact records. So the mountain bikes values I have changed, so I can even see the detailed records where the data gets stored. So if it is a acquired model, that means the data is stored within SAC, then the data is stored like this in the SAC model itself. right? So if it is a live model where the data is stored in some source system, then it will we have to write back the data again to the source system. But anyways, for planning, there will be storage in SAC. So you can go into the model and you can change the different versions here, and you can see the actual granular data that is stored in the planning model.
Thanks.
Ram, one more question. May I ask?
Yeah, Arun, please go ahead.
Yeah. In the planning scenario, yeah, you said like in the backend we have two different connections: import model and live model, right? Uh,
Mhm,
as you said, the in import model, if you did planning, so the data will store in SAC itself, correct? And
mhm.
if it is a live model, the data will pull back to the database like BW system or something. Yeah. Still the planning futures remain same, like though the data store in SAC for import and store in database for live.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that is a good question actually. And the import, again, you have to understand the export will not happen automatically. The write back, you should create it. So you should go ahead and do data management in the model, and then you should
Mhm.
see, there are at this point there are only two ways to export data, right? So one is as a file, which is
Mhm.
like you have to download the file and then upload to some system, and the
Mhm.
other option is only SAP BPC. Even SAP BW has some planning, SAP S4 has some planning, but
Mhm.
you see here only export data to SAP BPC is there.
Mhm.
So if you have, for example, the data is in S4, and then you have to do some planning, and you want to write back to S4, then you have to, use some custom logic
Mhm.
and middleware to do that. But yeah, I think in maybe SAP will bring that feature, but now at the moment, the only system you can write back to is BPC. So if you are doing some BPC planning, you can use SAC also to do some planning, and then again write the data back to BPC, where you can continue the planning in BPC. And
Mhm.
SAC and BPC have a stronger integration while running data action also.
Mhm.
Within that, you can trigger some BPC planning functions. You can trigger some BPC planning sequence, etc. But yeah, like you said, uh, when you ask the question, the understanding was that as if the system writes it back, it will not write it back. You have to write it back.
Okay, okay. Like the provision has to be established, correct? Like once the
Yes.
provision is established, then it will do its job,
Yes.
correct? Okay. And one more question, like it's something related to business perspective. Like most of the cases I see, this planning sequence were run for the financial finance projects, yeah, like GL account or something. The finance planning they do. Also, it's possible for procurement like that, the other stuff.
Yes. So yeah, I mean that's a again another good question. So predominantly, I see the finance team using planning features more, but that doesn't mean other LOBs are not using it. I have seen uh, demand planning. Uh, yeah, maybe in procurement also there is. Yeah, procurement planning is there. It comes under APD. Like when you have goods or service to deliver, then
Mhm.
in that process, one of the planning involves you to procure raw materials or semi-finished goods or services to deliver your final product. Like that, there are a lot of planning scenarios, and even this can be in standard content also. You can check the standard content and see if you have scenarios. But yeah, in general, the finance teams and GL account, AR, AP, these type of planning are predominant, but SAP
Mhm.
has some like 30, 40 LOB level plans even for procurement. A lot of things are there
Mhm.
which can be planned in SAC. So if there is an actual business planning process happening, SAC also supports that, because SAP has a history of working with business closely, and they have all this already captured. But yeah, if one or two cases, if it's very new or niche type of planning, it may not be there in SAC.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so let's quickly jump on to that custom widget we were talking. Any other questions? in the meantime.
Yes, I mean, do we have any transport system to move the models from quality to across the landscape?
Yes, that's again another good question. Uh, so traditionally, the transports supported two things. So one was uh, through file system, meaning you can export and it will download a file to your local system, and then you can go to another SAC and then you can import it again using the file, right? But SAP is moving away from the model. See, it says uh, file system will be soon deprecated and we recommend using content network instead. So what is this content network? It's nothing but cloud. So you can export your content from one SAC and it will be stored in the cloud storage. And when you go to another SAC system, in there you can go to import and you can use the exported content from the content network. So there is no physical file being transferred to your local system back and forth. Right. So yes. So to answer your question, yes, we can transport from one SAC tenant to another SAC tenant. Previously, it was like you can transport from any tenant to any tenant until the version in them are not very different. So SAC has a system version like 21, for example. So if the system versions are not very different, so you can export from 21 to maybe 20, one version back. That's all. You cannot export from 23 and then import it in a version very old, because there can be new features in the tenant you are exporting which are not there in the tenant you are importing. So generally only one version backward compatibility is there. So to avoid all that stuff, the use of file system is being deprecated. So you cannot anymore download a file to your local machine and upload a file from your local machine, etc. You can only store it in cloud. But yeah, that should make things easier than harder.
Thanks, thank you.
Okay. And one more thing, you may not see all these options in some systems. That may be because your access may be like that. So you see these white lines. Basically, there are two white lines. So this first white line, anything above that is like general access. If you have access to SAC itself, as a user, you will still be able to see home and files. But if you have some access to BA or planning, you should be able to see some apps here. Right? So if you have only BA access, you will see some. If you have planning access also, you'll see others. And only if you have administrator access, you will see all these things below this line. Right? So only if you have admin access, you should be able to do some user creation, role management, you should be able to transport, etc. So if you don't find the transport option in SAC tenant, probably you should check your roles and see if you have enough access, then you can transport.
So,
Okay.
do we have any backend system
Yeah.
to check the roles like we do have it available like RS?
Here everything is web app itself. So if you go to security and if you go to users, you should be able to check your roles. And even in roles, you will see which users are assigned to a particular role. So for example, if you see the admin role, there are two users assigned to that. If you click the two users, it will take you to that two users. So there is no external system. It's all stored within SAC itself.
So, Ram, one more question, sorry. Just to ask. See, for example, while we transport or maintaining any model, if there will be a chance of losing it, right? Do we have any recovery method to bring back the model from the previous machine? Or let's say
So
while transporting,
ideally, like you should not lose transports like in a traditional SAP systems, like uh, you know uh, in SAP ECC or S4, where you use transport. There also you will not lose a transport. The the package can get corrupted, or some objects in the package can get corrupted, but ideally you should not lose the transport in the content network. So if you lose that, then you have to create a ticket to SAP saying that with all the information, and only SAP can resolve it. So ideally, I have not seen a situation where someone lost the transport package, but I have seen situations where people corrupt things, right? So there will be version 1 of the package, and then someone makes some change and then they export this also, and then that goes and corrupts the original package. That happens. and that is again at your own risk. So previously, one of the things that people used to do is they take a constant backups because it was file system. So you can download one file this week, another file next week. You can keep constant backups. If something gets corrupted, you have the file locally, you can import it. But now with content network storage, again, you can do the same thing, but the content network, the storage is limited. It's around some particular GB, right? So you cannot have a lot of archive also, but you can have some kind of backup strategy, like maybe every 2 weeks or every month you keep backup, and maybe at a time you will have 3 or 4 backups and deleting old backups as housekeeping, stuff like that. But yeah, so if you lose a package itself, then inform SAP, raise a ticket. That's a bad thing for a product to do. But if you corrupt the content, then SAP will not be responsible for that. You should have some strategy within your team, and you should plan how to back up, how to recover.
Thanks.
Okay.
Ram, let's go ahead. We can take question later, maybe. Let's finish the agenda first. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, it's 10. So yeah, just we'll cover this GPT integration and then we'll close for the day, right? So just hang on for some time. So how many of you have used OpenAI's GPT before? Any GPT models, not ChatGPT. I mean, even ChatGPT is using the GPT models in the backend. But have any of you used GPT through some coding like Python or Java or anything? Okay, so I don't see any show of hands. So I'll share a blog with you where you'll have detailed information about this GPT widget. You can read through the blog later, but I'll give you a very generic idea. Okay, so OpenAI gives you access to their GPT models through API keys, and they are paid, right? So every request you send, it will charge a particular amount to your account, right? So the first thing you have to do is to create your GPT keys. So, and you have to keep these keys as secrets, because if you leak the key, then anyone will use it and your account will be charged. So the first thing is go to your OpenAI account, create a key, and then have that key with you, right? That part is external to SAC. So in any programming language you want to use OpenAI, you have to follow that. Now coming to SAC, now like we discussed, we have something called as custom widgets, right? So what are custom widgets? If you have some functionality which is not available by standard SAP widgets, then you can create any JavaScript based widget which can add that functionality to SAC. So for example, we don't have a GPT integration in SAC so far. Maybe in the future SAP can directly provide it. But in the meantime, if we want to use that feature, then we have to write some JavaScript code which basically bring that feature for us. So there are two fields, there are two files that are required to create any custom widget. One file is the JSON file or the manifest file, where you tell about what that widget is, what is the name of the widget, who is the vendor, what is the version number, etc. Right? So it's nothing but a manifest file where this blogger has, put his name as the vendor, put his ID, version, the custom widget name, etc. So here there is nothing, uh, nothing related to programming. It's just a manifest which explains the capabilities. Now coming to the second file, which is the main.js, that is the JavaScript file that actually has the functionality, or that actually is the widget itself, right? So now if you see here in this second file, the JavaScript file, so it's nothing but a very simple file. So in JavaScript, we create a request, we create basically a promise, and we do a post call to a particular model. So there are a lot of models in OpenAI, and one of the model is called Text DaVinci, right? Text DaVinci 002. So this custom widget will call that particular model, and then it will give us the results back, right? So it will return error, or it will return a response from the model to us. It is doing just that, right? So if in future, if you want to, change from using DaVinci 002 to some other models, there are a lot of models in OpenAI. If you go to OpenAI, models available, you will see a lot of models, right? And he has hard coded one of the models here, right? So now if you want to change that, so for example, if you want to go for GPT-4 instead of DaVinci 2, you want to use some other, maybe turbo, turbo 06 or turbo 432K, something like that, then you will just replace this model name and you can use it. And similarly, the API version 1 they are using, if you want to use V2, you can change this URL and use it. So the idea is, with these two files, we should be able to create a custom widget. So let's do that. So I'll copy all this code. And let's name it custom widget.json. Right. So now we'll copy the JavaScript file as well. And we'll name it main.js. Okay. So now we have the two files ready, right? So there is one more thing we need to do. So we have to zip the main.js file. So here is a main.js file. So let me okay, I have created a main.zip file. So now let's go to SAC and we have to add a custom widget. So I'll add a custom widget. So first it asks me the JSON file, right? So I'll go to the custom widget.json we created. We select that, right? Uh, so before that, I had to do one more change, which I missed. Excuse me. So this URL, which is pointing, it's pointing to his own GitHub, which I don't want to use. So I'm just saying /main.js, right? I'll save this file and again, let's add it. Right. So as soon as I change the URL, it asks me for the resource files, which is nothing but the main.js file. Right. So now we have this zip file ready. So I'll select that zip file also. So main.zip I'm selecting. I say OK. Right. So that created our custom widget. So now everything is set. We can go to a story. We can create a new story and then we can add this custom widget in our story. So now you see there is an option called custom widget and there is this ChatGPT SAC custom widget. It's not a UI widget, so you will not see anything here. So don't worry, just make it tiny and just leave it off. That's all. It's not. It doesn't have any UI components. We are not written any HTML or CSS to make it UI. It is just a post call, right? It's just a main.js file which just calls some APIs. That's all. So it doesn't have anything here. So if it shows nothing, don't worry about it, right? Uh, Now all we have to do is we have to create our own UI or whatever elements we want. So basically what I'm going to do is I'll just have a text area where people can enter some text or some prompt to ask GPT, and then I'll have a button, right? So after entering the text, you'll click this button and that should trigger, clicking the submit button should trigger the post call, and then the response also will show it in the same text area, right? So that's basically the UI that we are going to use. Now in the button, we have to write our script, right? So unlike traditional stories, the story optimized experience will allow scripting. So if you go here, if you say on click, now whenever the button is clicked, this function will be called. So inside the function, we can write our script, which is again given in the this blog itself. So if you go to that blog, you can find the exact script. So from this blog, there are a couple of important things, right? So one is the type of endpoint you're calling, right? So there are multiple endpoints to OpenAI, which is beyond the scope of this discussion, right? So there are embedding endpoints, there are completions endpoint, etc. So we are just using completion endpoint. So what does completion mean? So if you write a sentence like what is the capital of India, it will complete saying Delhi. If you say dog says and just space, it will say woof woof. If you say cat says, it will say meow. So whatever sentence you are writing, the model will try to complete the sentence. If it is a question, it will try to answer the question, right? So that is the completions endpoint. And then you have to pass your own personal API key, right? The secret API key. He has just put the text as secret API key. Here you have to actually give your API key in this particular space, right? And he has used a normal. All these things are, he had an input field. We have a text area. So from text area, we'll get the user's query, and we'll call the custom widget dot post method, and we'll give the key, the endpoint, and the prompt.
Ram, you are muted, I guess.
Hello.
Yeah, you got on mute, I guess.
Uh, at
We can
till
speak
what
now.
point, Ankit?
Just now, just 5 seconds back, you were explaining
All
this.
this was heard, right? Like API key,
Yeah,
everything.
yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so now just give me a moment. Okay, so I'll just get one of the API keys to use here, right? And we will begin our scripting, right? So I'll just copy the script, use it here. We don't need this anyway, and we don't need this also anyway. So just give me one moment. Let me get a fresh API key to use from OpenAI.
So, guys, meanwhile, Ram is, helping with that. So, uh, we offer training on SAC, okay, and planning, predictive, and BI, all three. And we have been able to complete approximately 25 to 30 batches of all of these. And I would tell you, EY took 7 batches back to back with Ram because of the way delivery. They trained all of their folks with datasphere and uh, like BIE planning predictive with Ram because they came up with the plan of 1 batch, but when they saw the delivery and everything, they proposed no, we want to train all of them with Ram. Okay, so that type of quality you are going to get with this training. And I have a list of topics, which normally we cover as a part of training, which I would love to show. So this webinar is dedicated to planning, so I'll maybe focusing only on planning things. And Ram, please interrupt me when you're ready. We can do it later once you finish it. Okay?
Yeah, sure, Ankit, go ahead.
Are
It'll
you
take
ready with the
a bit
key?
of time. No,
Okay,
no, no.
okay, no
It'll take a
problem.
bit of time. Yeah.
No problem. So, guys, this is a content, what all the things he had mentioned in the capabilities, all those things, and inside that, what all more capabilities with real-time use cases. And our sessions will be 90% time will spend on hands-on. We don't open PPT and will teach you on PPT. No, everything is going to be in session, in live, in system. Okay, so all these topics which even you saw on a high level, there on a capability part was already mentioned. A lot of use cases will be covered, and this is what the curriculum we follow. Okay, now we have a new batch which is starting on 16th of this month. Okay, and it is a live batch. Okay, and this this is your schedule. Okay, it is 22 hours of training on SAC planning. It is starting on 16th of this month, and 7 p.m. IST timing. But yeah, it will be in morning for US guys, and depending upon your different time zone, you can have a check on. 3 hours of session we'll do daily. So it will take a month's time to get complete this course end to end. And definitely I can share you, this is nothing but a content which I already showed you. Okay. So that's what plan if you are really interested to join. And also we have our YouTube channel. There, if you subscribe, you see anyways a lot of content already available, okay, on video. If you go so on SAC also you will find some for data warehouse cloud or SAP Analytics Cloud, and SAC Planning, datasphere again, SAC planning, you have a video on that. If you there is a data action has been covered even by Ram only, and I have kept a video. Okay, so you can go ahead and have a look on this, or anything else you're looking for. We are pioneer on BTP. We offer around 13 different courses on BTP. Okay, and no one in the world offers all of them, but we offer them. So we are very versed with all niche technologies. Whatever training you'll not get anywhere, you'll get with me. PEO, which is very new module launch, PAPM or EDTP, all those which are very niche, very new, you can find with us. Okay, and definitely you will have very good experience with us, because I myself is a training coordinator, but I do understand technology very well. So what all the trainers comes with us, they are very cream, very very clean, very good, and we already have very good experience with them, and those only come and take training with us, and Ram is one of them. And he have been taking training from last 3.5 years with us. So if you see, this is it is a year back, right? And after that, around 15 batches he would have taken. Before than that, he would have taken a lot of batches. So if you're interested to join any of these courses, you can reach out to me, and definitely we can go ahead further. So Ram, I'm done on this,
Yeah,
so
I'm
if
ready.
you
I'm
want, you
ready,
can go
Ankit.
ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So we are basically, calling this API, and what we are doing in the script is very
Please
simple. I
share
have
your
a text
screen.
in.
Please share your screen. I had shared it, so it's not shared.
Okay. Now,
Yes, now came correct. Yes.
okay. So now in this story, we have which is called text area, right? That on click function, right? So whenever the button is clicked, this function is called. Okay, so now the user clicks the button. So what should happen, right? So whatever the user has entered in text area one, we are getting the value, right? So if the user enters a question like what is the capital of India, now that value is got and it is stored in prompt, right? So in the prompt variable, now the question is there, what is the capital of India, right? Now we are calling the ChatGPT custom widget, and it has one method which is called post method. Right? So in that we are passing the API key, the endpoint, and the question from the user. What is the capital of India? Now whatever response this ChatGPT gives, right? It can either be the actual response. It can say capital of India is Delhi, or it can be a error message also. It can say, for so and so reason something has failed. That response will be captured in this variable called response. Now we are again putting the response back in that text area. We are saying text area dot set value response, right? So very simple script. Now let's go ahead, let's save this, and then let's run it. Now this is a very simple scenario. Actually, in the training sessions, we will see how we can use GPT to do some planning also. So how we can generate some plan data using GPT, how we can generate some sample data using GPT, all those things we'll see. But let's first see the GPT integration with SAC. So now the story is saved. Now let's go to view mode. It's the custom widget is not working. So I can see the error here. Refuse to load the script because eval unsafe. Right. So why is it not working is because, it will work on preview tenants, but not on training or demo tenants. It's because in the file, in the manifest file, we have to set some content security policies. So let me see if I can fix this very quick. So uh, that's the problem. So it's script, there is a self. So if you are, if you are applying for a demo tenant, or if you are applying for a trial tenant, in the trial tenant, this following this entire blog should work without any problem, right? So this is a tenant by a company, right? So that's why it has strict content policy, and it is not allowing uh, the embedding. I mean, it's not allowing basically the custom widget to post. The post is failing, so that's why we are not getting a response, right? So we have to do multiple things to fix that, right? So first thing is uh, we have to show why we are calling that particular domain, and then we have to establish trust, and then we have to, instead of saying ignore integrity, I have to make the ignore integrity false, so it will do a integrity check. So I have to generate a 256-bit hash for this entire file and include that hash here, etc. So it will take a lot of time. It is not that it is not doable, it's very doable. The problem is, for this particular tenant, I didn't check beforehand yesterday that it was a strict content policy tenant, so that's my miss. So what do you
So
want to
big
do,
guys,
Anil?
maybe they can try maybe in trial system if they want to. Any of you have
Yeah,
explained them what to do. I understand my it's an enterprise one, okay, and it definitely will have that content security part we are talking about, right? That's why it's not letting us to do. So we have to do
yeah,
pre-preparation for that, correct?
yeah.
So not an issue. I would have maybe would have used trial, but now we are after the time. We already have gone more than 20 minutes. So not an issue. You anyway have explained things. They should try maybe with their trial account. They can get a secret key. And can you help how we can get a secret key? Where we can get it? That is one thing which missing. Otherwise, all fine.
Yeah, so here in the blog itself, in the prerequisites,
Okay,
so
okay,
if you
okay.
see here, it explains. You just have to go to OpenAI, log in, sign in with your account. It will ask for your credit card, and then you can generate this exact screen. You will see. You'll just click create new secret key, and that's all.
Okay. Thanks, Ram. Guys, do we have any queries, any questions on SAC planning content or any topic? If you're looking for training on this, do you want something specific to check whether this is something getting covered or not covered? Please go ahead
I
and
see
ask.
one hand, Darshan.
Yeah, Ram. So Darshan here. So basically, like when you're mentioning that for a chat GPT login, there is a credit card required. So is it a mandatory?
Yeah, I mean, when I mean that OpenAI initially they provided some tokens for free, but because of
Okay.
overwhelming response all around the world, they have stopped doing that. So there is no concept of trial or free anymore. So
Okay.
you have to include your payment information, so that it will be very minimal charge, right? So
Okay.
even for 1 hour's worth of content, like if you continuously ask questions for GPT, it will be like 1 cent or 2 cent. That's all.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Ram.
Okay, guys, anyone has any question? So if you guys don't have
I
any
think
question,
one
yes.
question, like you were doing sessions not only on SAC, yeah, like I see lot of SAP topics such as BTP, the other technologies also, like datasphere. Is that true?
Yeah,
Yes,
data sphere
yes.
and all. Yes. Okay, so Ram is expert in data intelligence, data sphere,
Mm-hmm.
admin, security, development of all of these three, even BW, BO, Lumira. Anyway, those are not like quite old, but on the
Mm-hmm.
latest data tool, he's well versed with all of these.
Mm-hmm.
HANA
Okay.
Cloud, admin, security, development, anything.
And
Mm-hmm.
other
Okay.
than analytics, there are a lot of other SAP courses also, which mentors will take with other trainers.
So
Mm-hmm.
So
we
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
have approximately 200 trainers, okay, and I would tell you no one offers BTP admin course. No one offers BTP security. No one offers SAP IAG. Those are we only offers. If you search,
Mm-hmm.
you will not find it. Or one or two people have learned and now they have started. Or so
Mm-hmm.
whatever niche, you will not find it anywhere. You'll find it with us. Okay, guys. So I hope you got some insights and you were able to utilize your 1 hour, at least some information you got from the session. Thank you so much for joining. And you can reach out to me if you want any trainings on this. Otherwise, have a great day ahead. We keep conducting these sessions and
Yeah,
we'll let you know.
thank you everyone.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you, Ram. Thank you
Thank
so much.
you.
Bye bye.
It was a wonderful session.
Thank
Ankit, one quick information. How do we get to know about these trainings? Like I just happened to reach out one of the links where I saw that there is this, but is there like you
Yeah,
post
we
it
have
somewhere?
proper website.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to mentorspool.com or
Mm-hmm.
you can reach out to me. I'll send you the details on email. Okay.
Okay,
On
sure.
You can reach out to me on phone number. I'll send you all the details on email, whatever you're looking for. Okay.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank
Yes.
you. It was a nice session for sure.
Yeah. Thanks everyone. Bye bye.
you
Thank
both.
you. Bye bye.
Thank you.